One of the things that Kasia hasn't mentioned is I walk around a lot, so you have your work cut out, cameraman. TPS first. I think I can skip this slide. I think you very well introduced it. I often get thrown on stages at Toyota. They like me in front of people. I think one thing maybe you haven't mentioned, I don't have any certification. I'm not stood here today preaching to you from a theoretical perspective. This is pure practice. This is pure learning from the field. But I did start at Toyota as a graduate. And that meant at Toyota that we went through a graduate program. I like to call this the brainwashing. The brainwashing is basically on this slide. As you can see, I didn't use ChatGPT on my presentation. I drew it. In the early 1900s, we were making clothes, and we were building them with looms, which frequently broke. And that meant that we had a lot of waste. Toyoda-san, founder of Toyota, in the 1930s, created his own loom. And this loom, when the thread broke, the machine stopped. This is the first concept that you need to remember today. When that machine automatically stops, it's called the andon. It just stops, and it doesn't allow bad quality to flow out. So all of a sudden, Toyota were able to create a lot of cloth with no waste. And then in 1936, Henry T. Ford was making lots and lots of cars in the first real automotive production line. You could have whatever you wanted, as long as it was black. And Toyota decided, okay, let's have a play in this area. Let's try and build our own cars. But let's introduce variation, and let's introduce those concepts that we had when we built the looms. Number one behind all of this was quality. Our focus was to produce quality first time, every time. Like this, we could keep our costs low, we kept our waste low. This was lean manufacturing, which became lean, which became agile. I didn't know this at the time. Behind that production system was what's now known as the Toyota Production System, or TPS. TPS, to deliver value, has 5 main pillars that are on the screen, as you can see now. The first one is, what does the customer want? I've heard a lot already today about people advising you to focus on the customer. This is the first pillar of the Toyota Production System. Understand your customer and what your customer wants. Based on what your customer wants, deliver that in a safe way, with the highest quality, with the shortest lead time, which will ultimately lead to the lowest cost. If you want to read about this, there is lots of books on the topic. What's very interesting is the brainwashing that I received when I joined Toyota wasn't really based on stuff that had been written down. It was kind of like your grandfather, father, uncle was passing on their knowledge towards you over multiple years of experience. But you can read these books, they tell you the same thing. And they're quite long and they're quite big. So I just want to summarize them for you today. Spoiler alert, this house is the main thing you need to take away from the books. This is called the TPS house. In the middle of the house, you have the workforce. They're motivated, they're ready to deliver for you. At the top of the house, you have the customer, whatever the customer wants. I'm now going to talk about the red highlighted areas just to make sure you all have some of the concepts of TPS clear in your mind. The first one I'm going to talk about is just in time. Just in time is the principle that you don't do anything before you actually need to do it. I think I've tried to put a real-world example from software development world on the bottom of the screen, and I will let you read yourself. But I think the most important thing that you can see here is you have this continuous flow. And if you think now about a car production line, It takes us around 2 days to build a car. You can follow your car around the production line, through press shop, weld shop, paint shop, through assembly shop, quality line at the end, and off. And you can see every step. And this is divided into round about 1 minute time intervals. So for 1 minute, lots of things happen on the car, and then it moves to the next station. This continuous flow in these small time segments, we call it takt time in Toyota, allows us to deliver what the customer wants, when the customer wants it. And that is the principle of just-in-time. Same slide format for Jidoka. This is a very Toyota-like word. I would describe, or I would translate this as built-in quality. Everything that you're doing with quality. Simon was just mentioning about test-driven development. This is a very good example of built-in quality in an IT world. Here you see the mention of and-on. You also see another principle here about the mix between a human and a machine. At Toyota, we don't believe that the machine can do everything by itself. It needs a human to check, to validate. It's a bit similar to what I just said about human in the loop in the previous session. And finally, standardized work. So you can do things just in time, and you can build quality into the process, but you also need to standardize what you're doing at the base. If you don't standardize what you're doing, you're not going to guarantee the quality. You're not going to build things just in time. How does this work from a car perspective? Here you see at a typical automotive production line, you will design a car. Designing a car is our MVP, basically. People will draw things on the back of a cigarette packet on how they want the car to look. There will be a bit of a judging panel on which of these designs is going to be chosen. And we will move on to digitalizing that drawing. We will then look in a standardized way at how we can build that car. And here we are designing all of the individual parts that go into that car and then throwing them all together in a machine to understand what the problems are. Then in a simultaneous way, we go and fix all of those problems, so eventually we have a product that looks like it can be built. Then we hand it over to the guys in the factory who work out how it can be screwed together. At the end of this process, the car looks nothing like the sketch, by the way. We're checking in the factory for safety. We're checking for quality. And we're checking that we can do this in a cost-effective way. And then we start building. As I mentioned before, we're building in batches. Actually, we have variation on the production line. In Turkey, it can be a CHR, followed by a Corolla hatchback, followed by a Corolla sedan. We build what the customer wants, and we build it just in time for their delivery. And we're flexible versus demand. So if we see our order books are filling up with CHRs, and we're not really selling many Corollas, we will build more CHRs. And this is all overseen by this guy called the chief engineer. This is the boss of all bosses for this car. He has nobody reporting to him, or she has nobody reporting to them. But they're responsible for delivery of that car. With this brainwashing in mind, and having around 8 years of experience delivering IT projects within my company, I started to realize we had a little bit of a problem with the plan-driven approach. And building cars, if you look at the graph behind me, it's very clear the requirements that you have on what you're trying to do, and it's very clear how you're going to build the car. So you can repeat and repeat and repeat, and you won't have a problem. Unfortunately, a lot of the IT projects I was facing were not in that situation. We had very unclear requirements, and we had very unclear technical landscapes that we needed to deliver on. That put us into a segment on this graph, which I like to call chaos. Chaos requires us to do small experiments to try to either get a better understanding of our technical environment or get a better understanding of our requirements. And at this point in time, I was recommended to have a chat with a guy called Jeff. And Jeff said, actually, everything you do at Toyota is why we created the Scrum guide, is why scrum.org existed. And a lot of people at Toyota showed up to see him speak. And a lot of people left that speech saying, well, that's just what we do in Toyota. So why are we not delivering software in the way that he's explaining? Because that is the Toyota way. We started doing trainings. I don't know how many times I drew this. And one of the parts of the training that we did, and Katya, you might remember this, is we asked the people in the audience, think of the Toyota principles, write them down on a Post-it note. Then we explained Scrum. And then we got them to, with their Post-it notes, come and stick them on the Scrum framework. And actually, you see a lot of the Toyota principles directly link onto the Scrum framework. And this was being done by the participants of the training. It wasn't fixed. It was just people could see the obvious links. So, building on that, we started on a journey of, is TPS and Agile the same? And actually, interestingly, they both have 12 principles. They both have 12. In Toyota, we call it the 12 Tengen. We have the 12 Agile principles. And actually, they can kind of map. Very quickly, because I don't want to bore you to death, I did some further work on this to try to do a comparison between the two. There are two things to call out on this slide. And this is where I'm going to go with the rest of this presentation. The first one, TPS basic thinking. And here, we basically have a logic that you learn how to do your job on the job. One of the things that appealed to me as a graduate was I could apply for Toyota and start working immediately. I didn't need to do 3 months in accounting, no offense to the accountants in the audience, 3 months in HR, no offense to HR people in the audience. I could go directly into IT project management. I could deliver stuff. I could do what I'd gone to university to do. TPS enables that. TPS teaches you how to do your job while you're doing the job. So you can learn and gain experience from day one. The second thing I highlight is TBP, Toyota Business Practices. This is a problem-solving methodology. Actually, one of the slides I saw earlier on organizational change was following a very similar pattern to this. What's the problem? What's the impact that that problem is having? Based on that data, how do you break down the problem to prioritize the one you're going to fix? You can't fix everything. So fix the biggest problem and then iterate. Based on that, you set yourself a target. You define and you do a root cause analysis to understand where the real problem is, and you fix the root cause. You don't paper over the cracks. You don't put a piece of sellotape down. You fix the real problem. And then you check you fix the problem. And if all's gone well, you can start the iteration again. Finally, in the line capacity area, there's a very important thing that we should always remember. You can only go as fast as the slowest part of your production line. Think about this from a software perspective. If you employ 10 developers and you've got one tester, you're probably going to have a problem. So balance your organization, balance your teams in such a way that you don't have those bottlenecks. We did some deeper looking. Basically, in summary, Agile and TPS seem to be able to coexist. They seem to be complementary of one another. So we put that on a graph, because we love a graph at Toyota. And we came up with this on, and you can see the way we've measured on the right-hand side of the screen. And we're looking at how to measure our maturity in the use of Agile and the use of TPS. I don't consider myself some kind of expert in either of these two areas, honestly. I would give myself maybe a 2.5 on the TPS one and maybe a 2.5 on the Agile one. Because culture is super difficult to attain. There is actually a role within Toyota in Japan called Grand Master. Can you imagine your business card with Grand Master as your title? It exists. And these guys are experts in their field. And there is one Grand Master for TPS. I had the pleasure of speaking to him once. It sounded like listening to Yoda. I recognize I am far away from this, hence my humble scoring on this. But it was very interesting that Toyota globally felt that this was a good way to score ourselves, and we should be aspiring to be 4 on both of these columns. The difference of how we build a car in TPS and how we build a car in Agile is behind me. I did, just for fun, ask what would it look like if we did in AI. Obviously, you build a spaceship, then your prompt gets better, and eventually you might get a car. Agile gives us flexibility. This is super important. Remember, Toyota Production System was about building a car in the same way, with the same quality, with safety in mind, as many times as we can. Every shift, you're building 100 cars. You cannot afford for anything to be different. But with software development, we need a bit more flexibility. And Agile brings us this. So the way I would simply look at it is use Agile, but take some of the key principles from TPS. The rest of my presentation is about practical examples. That is your theory. It looks like most of you have survived. So I'm going to talk about 3 different examples in our organization. Firstly, about delivery. Secondly, about the organization reshuffling itself. And finally, about budget. But we talked about navigating the waters and commanding the ship. So this was my effort to link to the themes of the conference. We in the automotive industry at the moment are in the perfect storm. And why do I say we are in the perfect storm? Firstly, the customer demand is changing dramatically. Everything you're doing, every way that you're interacting with companies today is changing. You're demanding that change. And automotive, which has been protected from this for a long time, is suddenly being exposed to this. 20 years ago, nobody would have thought about going online to do your banking. You had to go to the bank. You had to see the bank manager. When was the last time you went to the bank? We don't. And everybody is now thinking this about car dealerships. And actually what they're realizing is online you can get a lot more valuable and factual data than you can if you speak to the salesman in the car dealership who's going to sell you what you want to hear. So customer demand is changing. We need to be 24/7. We need to be self-service. We need to be delivering what the customer wants when the customer wants it. We also have our, I call it lineup here. It's the powertrains. It's the models that we're offering. At Toyota, we were quite lucky. Our top management, it was nothing to do with me. Our top management decided we will go with a multi-path strategy. You can have a fully benzene car. You can have a hybrid car, which is a mix between electric and benzene. You can have a fully electric car, or you can go for another zero-emission option with a hydrogen car. What do you want? What's your use case? Let's offer you a powertrain that fits you. Many people jumped into the EV boat. A lot of them are stepping back now. But there's definitely a lot of disruption in this area, and we need to be wary of this. The final one is competition. Probably you've all seen the Chinese brands that have entered the market recently. BYD probably being the most prominent one. It was the biggest selling car in the UK last month. 11.6 thousand units. In 1 month. We have competition It's here to stay. They are selling in volume, and we need to be wary of this. With that in mind, let me tell you a little story about a delivery project that we did in the sales area. We were trying to transform from mostly offline experience to a hybrid online-offline experience. And you can see with the different shades on the graph behind me that we were trying to offer a lot more digitally online, be a lot more self-service, enable the customer to do a checkout of a car online. This shift was truly transformational for Toyota. It was very different to the normal buying experience, and it involved a lot of digitalization of a sales process, which we'd never done before. Practically speaking, five main areas that we'd never done before, and these are mentioned on the screen behind us. Firstly, in order to simplify what you're buying, we decided to go with a simplified lineup of a model. For one of our models, we had 756 different variants across Europe. 756. Apple has 3 iPhones worldwide. Okay, maybe now with the iPhone Air there's more, but you get the point. The customer didn't know what they were buying. So let's break this down. Let's offer a simple product that the customer actually understands what they want to buy. Secondly, we wanted to provide an on-the-road price. No haggling. Again, Apple sell iPhones at the same price the world over. Could we do this in Europe for one model? Could we set a price where what you look at online is actually the price you're going to get without all of the negotiation and the haggling involved? The third thing that we focused on is having a seamless experience. You need to do what you do online, offline, basically. So if you save something on your PC at home and then you go to the dealership, you show a QR code, you can continue the journey in the dealership. Fourth, for the first time, we would offer finance and insurance as part of the package. So you see the full deal, not parts of the deal. This was all done isolated separately before. And finally, we would provide a dynamic ETA. When you order on Amazon, you see when it's going to arrive, right? When you order a car, yeah. Room for improvement. So we wanted to provide that dynamic ETA, that accurate ETA towards the customer. This involved a huge amount of teams. You see the adaptation of the number of systems, the new platforms that we were introducing, the new teams that were involved. And we loosely had a safe PMO organization. I say loosely because at Toyota we take every agile framework that ever existed and customize it to make sure that it works for us. I'm sure you are all doing exactly the same. But this was a big, big change. And everybody was super excited. We're transforming the company. We're doing something nobody has ever done before. So inevitably, we hit a problem. And at this point, and I mentioned about TBP in the introduction, we had a problem with our delivery. We did a TBP. We stopped a multi-million euro project. I stopped a multi-million euro project. And together with the team, we did a TBP to understand what the problem was. I've blurred some slides here to show practical examples of what really happened. Mapping the process, understanding where the problem was. Ultimately, we identified 7 countermeasures that we needed to implement. And I'm happy to say that we remain on target to deliver at the end of this year, this new experience. The core of the problem was we bought an off-the-shelf platform and then decided to customize it 84%. Sound familiar to some of you? Now, I don't want to go into the politics behind this decision. This is a fact. But really, we need to focus on the amount of customization that we're going to do when we're buying a platform. And if you get to this kind of level, please build. It's much more straightforward. But in Toyota, we had a deadline. We had to hit the deadline. We then started cutting scope in order to hit that deadline. Base principle at this point, TPS wins. TPS wins over Agile. You cannot Agile your way out of hitting that deadline. You need a solid scope that isn't going to move, focus back on TPS principles. In summary, for this case, plan. If you don't have a plan, you're going to be in trouble in the first place. And just because you say that you're doing Agile is not an excuse not to have a plan. Sorry. We're all adults. We all know this. And we should call it out when a plan does not exist. Secondly, experiment, which is a bit contrary to the first one. But I think Agile is brilliant to allow you to do this within a box. Give yourself time to try things. Give yourself time to do things in a different way. And finally, hit your deadlines. What I've learned from experience is actually the deadline that is set is more important than how beautiful and technically amazing your solution is. If you have a deadline, if it's been set by a top executive, then either change the deadline at the start, or if you accept the deadline, find out a way to get there as quick as possible. That's where Agile can help you as well. Secondly, organization. We had a problem within Toyota, and we have a problem in Toyota about rebalancing our organizations at the moment. I explained about the perfect storm that we're going through. And one of the challenges that we have is we have a certain headcount, a certain number of people, and that needs to remain flat at all costs. But we have new business areas arriving. If we sell 1.2 million cars like we did last year, fully EV, we have 1.2 million batteries around Europe. If 1.2 million batteries are plugged into a house and charging at home, suddenly we became an energy provider. How did that happen? And how can we leverage that for the benefit of you, the customer? Because actually, if you went to work and recharged your car, and you went home and then discharged your car onto the grid, and then recharged it when the electricity was at a lower rate, and you made a few euros every day that you did that, you would be a very happy customer, right? So we have these new areas, these new business areas that we need to try to support, but we need to do that within our existing headcount. So loosely, we're trying to squeeze on this triangle the traditional business, try to automate, try to standardize, try to remove the waste in our existing organization to make space for new business in an effort to meet customer demand, to meet what the customer wants and demands from us. In one of our affiliates, we did a company-wide exercise where we trained people on TPS in the office, and we did a number of projects where we looked at trying to free headcount, trying to reduce the time it takes to do a standard job, trying to squeeze that pyramid to free up the time to be able to do new business jobs. This was led by 2 people in that affiliate, and the process itself is called Jishuken. Jishuken is basically map out your process as it is today, identify where the waste is, where the gaps are, document those steps, map those steps, and then ultimately standardize it to a new process and automate where possible. The graph on the left-hand side shows you the practical result of this activity. But based on the number of projects that they did, they were able to cut the time of doing those tasks by 50%. which saved them 7 people a year. And those 7 people were reallocated to new business. This year, the same affiliate is going to try and do the same thing again, but they're trying to double the number of projects and trying to double the amount of people that they will free up as a result of this. So I think the lessons learned from here is I saw it on a slide before, but Kaizen is continuous improvement. Never stand still. Always improve. Always try to do something better. There is always that opportunity. You need leadership to make this work. There needs to be somebody strong at the top of the organization who's going to sponsor you, who's going to support you. It's not always going to be easygoing. It's not always that the people in the organization will want to change, will want to improve. So it's really important that you find that one sponsor to help you. And finally, process. I think I'm in a room full of people that I don't need to preach to about this. But if you don't know your process, then you have a problem, honestly. And you're definitely not going to be able to improve it. So the first thing when you have a problem that you should be thinking about doing is looking at the process. Because 9 times out of 10, based on my experience, if you write your process down, you will find some quick wins to make your job faster anyway. Finally, budget. This one is work in progress. As Kasia mentioned, I have recently changed role in Toyota. I'm now responsible for the business transformation office. It's responsible for the strategy, the governance, the budget, the people within the IT department, and also the architecture that we run. This means I suddenly became responsible for budget, which was quite daunting at the beginning because, as you may have already told from me speaking already, I'm not a very insights blue person. I don't like details. I like to be on budget, but I don't like dipping into those details. So this was quite a challenge for me. Before we start this point, there are some base rules that I have. The first one is have a PO. If you don't have a PO, you do not have a project. You cannot, as an IT professional, be both the project manager, scrum master, and the PO. That does not work. You need somebody who's responsible for the backlog, who's responsible for the vision of the product. Otherwise, you shouldn't be doing it. In IT, we've tried to start many projects. We have many failures as a result of this. We've tried to start many projects without a PO, and we have many failures also linked to this. So have a PO. Secondly, have a vision. Linked to that vision, you have targets, you have goals, you have KPIs, you have SLAs. You need something to measure, as we were talking about earlier, actually. And finally, understand your deadline. Very honestly here, I have come to a point that if an executive sets me a deadline, I don't accept. I will go away and I will speak to the team. And I will ask the team when they think that they can deliver on this. If I don't like the answer, I will challenge. But I will do that discussion and I will get that commitment and I will go back to that executive and tell them when we can do it by. If they're not satisfied with that, we obviously have different options. Less scope is an option. MVP, one of my pet hates. So we are trying at the moment to change the way we do budgeting within our organization. The slide behind me summarizes the steps that we've already done on the far to your left, where we started off by every time we had a project, we would make a document for that project, we would explain the contents of that project and the return on investment, because finance will not give you any money unless it's going to return on the investment that you're making. And we'll do that for each individual project in each individual area. We have moved more towards a product funding model. It took some time. Our finance department are not the most agile. But they kind of understand that based on that, we can measure our cost, our quality, and our time. And we can be quite consistent on our delivery considering we have a level capacity. So we are now starting and embarking for the first time, at least in our company, to try to move towards program funding. I don't have anything to tell you about this because we're doing it now. But the target from our side is to keep this QCD, we call it, quality cost delivery, to give a capacity for each of the divisions and have joint ownership between the business unit and the IT team on the outcome, on the value that we deliver as a result of this. And this would be a first time globally for us to achieve this as a direction. But our accounting department, for some reason, trust me and believe that this direction might work. So we will give this a go, and maybe next time you see me, I will be saying nice things about this. Maybe I won't have a job anymore. Let's see. Key point. This was only possible through standardizing the way that we deliver things. It's only possible to make sure that we're delivering just in time what is needed so that we can show the value that we are creating. And it's only possible because we are measuring the quality and we're getting positive feedback on what we're delivering from a quality perspective. In summary, and to close, what I have seen over my years in delivering IT projects is with TPS and Agile together, you can do great things. And you've seen examples through my slides where TPS and Agile are quite well matched. But at least where I work, if everything goes wrong, if problems happen, we can pull the hand on, we can stop, and we can work out how to fix the problem. And I think in Agile and TPS, this is both the same, but TPS principles here dictate that you can do that. And if I look at the why that is possible, why can you just stop the project? Why will top management allow you to do these type of things? I think it's because of the organizational culture. This fits into some of our DNA. This fits into some of the Agile principles. But ultimately, we have a culture, or the psychological safety, if you will, that enables us, that allows us to speak up when there's a problem. Because at Toyota, Taiichi Ono, who wrote the TPS book unofficially, once said, if you don't have a problem, you are the problem. And I really believe he's right here. He wanted to make sure that everybody understood that there's always problems. It's normal. Share them. Other people can help. Other people can support. Other people can help you fix them. And I think we have this culture in Toyota that we can pull the hand on when we have a problem, that we can stop and we can think of how to fix this. And if you want to experience more of this, here we are in the heart of Europe, and you do not need to go very far from this building to find places where TPS is being practiced every day. We have many Toyota entities here in Poland. We have 2 factories. We have a shared service center. We have a sales company. Go, speak to them. They love to share TPS stories, trust me. And to close, one thing that really bugs me is people that say, but we always did it like that. That is where at Toyota, I think we are very different from our competition. People do not say that in Toyota. People say we need to Kaizen. So this is improving a standard, improving our way of working. Or when you're in a bit of a revolutionary state, when you want to break through, when you want to do something creative or innovative, I don't know if Simon's still in the audience, then you can do what we call kaikaku. Kaikaku was something where you want to do something completely different, blank piece of paper, start again, try to break through. You may well reduce your performance at the beginning, but you will go much more improved in the longer term. That was my presentation. I hope you found it interesting, and I'm ready to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, James. I've got 3 questions in the meantime for you, but please feel free to put more in the Slido while we're talking. So, first one, how did you calculate the 84% of customization?
Jira does this for you, whoever asked that question. So everything's t-shirt sized in Jira, and we saw the main product and the delivery of that, and this is just the additional features that were being added.
Okay. What was your MVP for this new selling platform?
Everything, as usual. No, I think actually our MVP is the scope that I've talked about today, because we did foresee a first wave release after that, a second wave release after that. We're actually live at the moment. It's hidden. So MVP is already there. And I think post that, we were talking about the financial integration, the insurance integration. So we'd already stripped it back. I think the problem with the platform that was 84% over is actually, and the main reason why we were delayed actually, I think the problem lies in there. And if I may segue a second, we took a platform as a service and we started to customize it. We evaluated that platform. We didn't evaluate the capability of that platform vendor to do development on their platform. And for me, that's one of the biggest mistakes. It was mentioned in the TBP slide. That's one of the biggest mistakes we made, because if we had evaluated their capability, we might have come with and of course at that point we didn't realize we were going to be customizing it that much, but we might have come to a different conclusion and selected a different vendor. And then our MVP would not have got... Indeed.
Okay. And I see some new incoming questions. So, how do you allocate money for stopping projects to fix them in your budget?
Yeah. In the end, this is overspend the second you make that decision. The way we run projects is we have a 5% buffer on what was approved. So until you exceed that, you don't have a problem. If you do exceed that amount, you know that you're going to exceed that amount. And in the project example that I gave, we are going to exceed that amount. Then you go to A&F and beg for mercy.
Is it granted?
Sorry?
Mercy?
I'm still alive at the moment.
Okay.
So.
Good one.
But I think that our finance department don't like it when I walk through the door, because either I'm going to ask for more money or I'm going to apologize about something. So.
We have a flag at the door.
Yeah, indeed. Like James is coming.
What was the most interesting example of Agile conflicting with TPS?
To be honest, I think for me, we have a number of Japanese colleagues that come over to help coach us, to help develop us in the office. And I always find the biggest conflicts with those parts of our organization, because they've come from the mothership. They've come from Toyota in Japan, where they're brainwashed much more heavily, it's clear, than us. And for them, Agile doesn't need to exist, because TPS does everything that you could ever want. I have had very good Japanese colleagues who've understood Agile, who've understood where it fits, and really embraced it. But at the same time, to get them to that state is always very difficult. For example, the concept of doing an MVP to a Japanese person is very difficult to understand. For them, give me all of the scope written down with all of the details, so I can then go away and in my little castle estimate that, and then I can tell you by when I'm going to deliver it, and then don't talk to me until that date, you know?
Wow.
And I have not got much experience with Japanese software development companies, it's true. But I think if you tried that in Europe, then yeah, you'd be out of a job quite quickly. And trying to explain that to them and the culture and the kind of understanding that they're coming with to Europe and understanding our different way of working, our different expectations has been quite challenging, quite frequently, honestly. And just to be clear for you all to know, every 2 or 3 years they rotate. So you go through the same process again. But you get better at explaining, so...
But it's the same explanation.
Indeed, indeed. Yeah, but I think you explain it from their viewpoint. There was a wonderful explanation today on what's the best quality, worst product, worst quality, best product. So in this case, you've got what's the way that they understand that they want to be explained this, and the way you would explain it to a European, and you're really going towards them to explain it in their terms so that they can understand it. I would not give this presentation in Japan. Firstly, the slides are way too light. You would need basically Japanese slide, you fill the slide with as many words as you possibly can.
Okay.
Then they give you respect.
Well, we're very happy. I'm very happy to not be at your presentation in Japan then, because I was already struggling to listen when I was seeing this table there.
Yeah, I breezed over the table quickly because it's not the purpose of this. It's just to show that you can compare the two together. So,
well, thank you very much.